The medical bay of the horizon's edge hummed with its usual sterile efficiency, but Commander Marcus Webb barely noticed as he staggered through the doorway, clutching his bleeding arm. The klaxons had finally stopped wailing after the Vryn raid, leaving only the aftermath of sparking consoles and the acrid smell of burnt circuitry. "Sit," came a deep, resonant voice that seemed to vibrate through the floor itself. Marcus looked up at the station's chief medical officer and felt his breath catch, as it always did. Dr. Kira stood nearly 9 feet tall, her shoulders broad enough to fill a doorway meant for cargo haulers. Her species, the Threxians, were known throughout the galaxy as giant beings whose homeworlds, crushing gravity, had shaped them into living monuments of muscle and bone. Her skin held a faint bluish tint under the harsh lights, and her 4-fingered hands could easily crush a human skull, though Marcus had only ever seen them work with impossible gentleness. "It's just a scratch," Marcus said, though blood dripped steadily onto the pristine floor. Kira's massive head tilted, her amber eyes narrowing. "Humans," she rumbled, something almost like amusement in her voice. "Always minimizing your injuries until you collapse." She moved toward him, and Marcus couldn't help but track the way she seemed to consciously make herself, smaller shoulders hunched slightly inward, steps careful and measured, as if she were constantly afraid of breaking something. Or someone. Her hands engulfed his arm as she examined the wound. Despite their size, her touch remained feather-light, clinical. Marcus had seen those same hands rip a bulkhead door from its hinges during an emergency evacuation 3 months ago, watched her carry 6 injured crew members to safety as if they weighed nothing. But now, cleaning his wound, she moved with the delicacy of someone handling antique glass. "Deep laceration, possibly shrapnel," she murmured, reaching for her instruments. "You'll need 3 dermal layers regenerated." Marcus watched her work, noting the way she positioned herself at an angle, never quite facing him directly. In the 6 months since she joined the crew, he'd noticed this pattern. Kira made herself peripheral, optional, easy to overlook, despite being literally impossible to miss. "How many wounded?" he asked. 12. "All stable now." She paused, her hands hovering over her generator. "You were the last to come in." "You always are. Someone has to make sure everyone else gets out first." "Even when you're bleeding," she said, and there was something in her tone he couldn't quite place. The regenerator hummed to life, and Marcus felt the familiar tingle of accelerated healing. Kira's concentration remained absolute, her massive frame bent over his comparatively tiny arm. This close, he could see the careful control in every movement, the constant self-awareness of her size and strength. "Why do you do that?" he asked quietly. Her hands stilled. "Do what?" "Make yourself smaller. You were hunching when you walked over here." Kira's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. For a long moment, she didn't respond, focusing intently on the regenerator settings. Finally, she spoke, her voice even deeper than usual, as if the words came from some buried place. "Because I am too large," she said simply. "This ship was not built for Threxians. The corridors are too narrow. The chairs do not hold me. I break things without meaning to control panels, equipment. Once a crew member's hand when I forgot myself during a greeting." She set down the regenerator, her massive hands curling into loose fists. "I am a creature built for a world of crushing gravity and stone. Here, among your kind, I am simply too much." Marcus felt something twist in his chest. "You saved 16 lives during the Corvus Station disaster, and I also crushed the captain's desk when I tried to sit on it during the briefing," she countered. "I see how the crew moves around me in the corridors, pressing themselves against the walls to let me pass. How they flinch when I reach for something near them." "Kira!" "No," she interrupted, her voice firm but not unkind. "You are a good man, Commander. You speak to me as if I were not a giant, as if my size did not matter. But it does matter. How could someone like you, so small and perfect in your proportions, see someone like me as anything but a useful tool? I am fit to lift heavy things, to break through barriers, to intimidate enemies. But I am not fit for gentleness, not fit for softness, not fit for— She stopped abruptly, turning away. Marcus stood, his newly healed arm flexing without pain. Not fit for what? Kira's shoulders, those massive, powerful shoulders, seemed to curve inward even more. For the things that matter to humans, she said quietly. For connection, for intimacy, for love. The word hung in the air between them like a confession. Marcus moved closer, positioning himself directly in front of her, despite the height difference that forced him to crane his neck upward. You think your size makes you unworthy of love? She looked down at him, and he saw something raw in those amber eyes. I know it does. I have known it since I left Threxia. My people are giants, Commander, and we love other giants. But here, in this universe of smaller, more delicate beings, I am an anomaly. I am too large for your beds, too strong for your embraces, too different for your hearts. That's not true, isn't it? She spread her arms, a gesture that seemed to encompass her entire massive frame. Look at me. Really look. I am nearly 3 times your size. My hand can encircle your entire torso. If I forgot myself for even a moment, if I held too tight or moved too quickly, I could hurt you, kill you. How could anyone accept that risk? How could anyone want— Her voice cracked slightly. How could anyone want this? Marcus felt his heart hammering against his ribs. For months, he'd been aware of Kira in ways that went beyond professional respect. He'd noticed how she laughed at his terrible jokes, deep rumbles that seemed to resonate in his bones. How she always checked on him first after dangerous situations, those careful hands examining him for injuries. How she'd once stood between him and a malfunctioning reactor core, her massive body a living shield, willing to die to protect him. He'd thought his feelings were impossible, unprofessional, a commander's inappropriate attachment to a crew member. But now, hearing the pain in her voice, seeing the way she'd internalized every sideways glance and whispered comment, he realized he'd been a coward. You want to know what I see when I look at you? He asked. She didn't answer, but she didn't look away either. I see someone who carries injured crew members like their precious cargo, who spent 3 hours carefully extracting Lieutenant Hayes from collapsed debris because regular equipment would have crushed him, who sits in the observation deck at night because you think you're bothering everyone, even though you're the best doctor this ship has ever had. He stepped even closer, close enough to feel the heat radiating from her massive frame. I see someone who makes themselves small because they've been told their whole life that taking up space is wrong. But Kira, your size isn't a flaw. It's part of who you are. Marcus, his name, spoken in her deep voice, sent shivers down his spine. I'm not finished, he said. You think you're not fit for connection? For 6 months, you've been the person I most want to talk to. You think you're not fit for gentleness? I've watched you handle newborn Kelvin larvae with more care than anyone else could manage. And you think you're not fit for love? He reached up slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. His hand barely covered a fraction of her forearm. You're wrong. Kira stared down at him, her amber eyes wide. You cannot mean that. Why not? Because I am too large, and you are so small, and I could hurt you without trying. And you won't, Marcus said firmly. You have the most precise control of anyone I've ever met. You've never once hurt anyone who didn't deserve it. You think I don't trust you? It's not about trust, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, despite its depth. It's about reality. How could this work? How could we— She seemed unable to finish the sentence. Marcus smiled, a little sad, a little hopeful. Maybe we figure it out together. Maybe it's difficult, and we have to adapt. Maybe it takes time. But Kira, don't tell me you're not fit for love because of your body. Your body is incredible. It's strong and capable, and it's part of you. And he took a breath. I find you beautiful. She made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. Beautiful. Commander, I am a giant. I know, he said. And I still think you're beautiful. For a long moment, Kira simply stared at him. Then, slowly, so slowly that he could have moved away at any point, she lowered herself to her knees. Even kneeling, she remained taller than him, but the gesture meant everything. She was making herself vulnerable, meeting him in the middle. I am frightened, she admitted, of hurting you, of being too much. Marcus reached up and placed both hands on either side of her face. His hands barely covered a fraction of her cheeks, but she leaned into the touch as if it were everything. Then we'll be careful, he said. We'll communicate. We'll take it slow. But Kira, please don't think you're not worthy of this. Don't think you're not worthy of being loved just as you are. Her eyes closed, and he felt moisture against his palms. Tears, huge and warm, sliding down her blue-tinted skin. I've been so lonely, she whispered. I know, he said. Me too. Then, carefully, giving her every chance to pull away, Marcus stood on his toes and pressed his lips to her forehead. It was chaste, simple, but it